Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the TradeStation Masterclass. My name is Jesus Nava. I'm the Director of Client Training and Education for TradeStation Securities. For me, it's always a pleasure to join you guys and talk a little bit about TradeStation. Today, we're going to do a strategy trading series where we highlight, certain strategy development features of the TradeStation platform. Today, we're going to talk about Portfolio Maestro, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. And the reasons why you would want to use it. Before we get started, here's the usual disclosures. Keep in mind that every symbol and idea that we talk about in this presentation is for educational purposes only. These are not recommendations of TradeStation. Also, that active trading is not suitable for everyone, and that past historical performance is no guarantee of future results. For additional information on these disclosures, go to www.tradestation.com/important information. We also have some additional disclosures right there at the bottom of the screen. And Manolo has also shared a link right there in the chat for anyone that wants a little bit more detail. All right, let's go over here to the TradeStation platform and talk about this interesting tool that is available as an application within the TradeStation platform. Before we go into Portfolio Maestro and why you would want to use it, let's go ahead and set up our chart analysis with a strategy, just an idea, so that we can start, using that idea and transferring that strategy over to Portfolio Maestro. So I think if you've been with my, if you've been in one of my master classes, you know that I find strategy development and strategy trading a fascinating topic, and I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy this also. I'm going to go here into studies and add one of the built-in strategies that are part of the TradeStation platform. Studies, add strategies. I'm going to start off with MACD. I think that's a strategy that I've used in many of my prior examples. I'm just going to highlight the LE. LE is for long entry and SE is for a short entry. I'm going to concentrate on the long side of the strategy for now, so let me just highlight that. So I'm going to combine the entry strategy of the MACD. So I'm going to enter the market when the MACD generates a long entry, but I'm going to combine that with an ATR trailing stop. So based on how volatile the market has been or how big the bars are getting, every symbol will have an adaptable trailing stop based on its volatility. So a lot of times we use ATR as a measure of price movement. So it just makes sense, a lot of sense, to introduce some of those calculations into our strategy, because then we're making the strategy sensitive to what the market's doing at a particular time. And in this particular example, it makes more sense because I want the strategy to also be applied to multiple symbols. So rather than specifying, a trailing stop of a specific amount, let's say that I set the amount to $500 as an example, rather than having that specific amount, which could translate differently depending on the symbol you're using. If you're using a high value stock like Tesla, which is the symbol we have here in the background, each share is $246. So a $500 trailing stop, I mean that I mean, considering the value of the share, that is different than applying a $500 stop or trailing stop on a stock like Verizon, which is trading in, I think, in the $30 range. So the reason, so the using ATR, we have a way of standardizing our trailing stop based on how the security is moving. So let me go ahead and leave that highlighted, the MACD long entry. I'm going to scroll towards the very top. Let me find the ATRs. Here they are. Okay, and I'm going to hold down the control key and click on the ATR trailing LX for the long exit. So by holding down the control key, you're able to select multiple strategies, which is what I just did here. I selected the MACD long entry with the ATR trailing LX. I'm just going to put those strategies on the chart. The strategy will find every single area or every single instance where the strategy would have generated an entry and an exit. You can see that in a trending market, these MACD entries look very nice. And the fact that the market is uptrending means that the trailing stop is not going to be triggered until it meets that downward movement. In this case, it met it right over here. So this is an out-of-the-box type of strategy. I'm going to go here to the data tab and click on strategy performance report. Let's go to the performance summary. Let's open this up a little bit. We can see the results of the strategy. This is a strategy that's going back 5 years. How do I know that? Well, I know what the default amount of data I have on my chart analysis, but I also look right here on the top, on the title bar of this strategy performance report, and you can see that it says September 26th, 2018 to September 26th, 2023. So a total of 5 years. We didn't have much trading activity in those 5 years. You can see the total number of trades is just 35. So maybe the trades are a small size for me to make any assumptions on the strategy itself. I want my strategy reports to have a significant amount of trades so that it just gives you a little bit more confidence about what the strategy is doing. But you can see how this particular strategy is profitable for Tesla. Was profitable for Tesla. Let's just make that clear. And we said at the very beginning, the fact that we're looking at a strategy performance report and we see that the strategy has performed a certain way doesn't mean that it's going to do that same or experience that same behavior going forward. And that's something that we as strategy traders need to be aware of, so it's very unlikely to expect the strategy to do the same. However, in a historical context, this strategy generated some profits, $16,000 of net profit in a period of 5 years. Not bad. If I change the symbol right here in the background, the strategy will recalculate. So let's say that I switch the symbol to Microsoft. It recalculates the strategy. Notice that, again, the total number of trades is about 33 trades. This is a strategy that from Microsoft generated about $9,000 of net profit. The profit factor is 1.54. I usually, look at the profit factor more than I do the total net profit, even though, you want a strategy that is profitable to get started with. But at the same time, you want to know what the ratio of winnings to losings are. It's not all about the total net profit, because sometimes if the profit factor is too low, it's very unlikely for the strategy to maintain that profitability. 1.5 profit factor means that for every dollar you lost, you made $1.50. So we have that type of that ratio. When you compare gains with losses. So the higher the ratio means that your risk reward ratio it's favoring your performance, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at some other areas of the strategy performance report, because I wanted to point out that when you do a strategy back test like I just did, this works really well for just one symbol. You notice that I started off with Tesla. I looked at the strategy performance report of that. Then I switched the symbol to Microsoft, and it seems like it's profitable for that as well. If I change this to Apple, we can see that it's profitable too. Look at the profit factor for Apple, 3.75. And of course, it's kind of expected, on an uptrending market to have these big trades. The MACD long entry enters the market and it doesn't exit until we have a drop in price that is significant enough so that it meets the ATR trailing stop. By default, this trailing stop uses 3 ATR. So whatever that ATR value is, it multiplies it by 3 and it sets that as your trailing stop. So notice that even though in this uptrend, we had some areas where the price corrected for a few days, it didn't correct enough for us to hit that trailing stop. It wasn't until right here where the price really corrected that our trailing stop got hit right here. And it was, good timing, because you can see that after that, the market just continued to drop. So a lot of times you're going to find trades like this that look really nice. But again, this is in historical backtest. I mean, anybody can sit there looking at historical data and pinpoint where the optimal entry and exit would be, right? So let's going back here to my performance report. I did do one symbol. I think it was Disney. Yeah. For example, if you switch to Disney, you can see that not such a good report here. We have a losing strategy here. The profit factor is only 89 cents. So you're always going to be on the negative in this particular case. For every dollar that we lost, we only made 89 cents. So that's not a good ratio. Although if you continue to switch the symbol, you may find that many symbols have a profitable performance. Ideally, when you're developing a strategy, you want a tool that allows you to do portfolio backtesting. So you have a strategy in mind, in this case, very simple. The rules that we selected here are very simple. MACD, long entry, and then we have an ATR trailing stop. But what you want to do is you want to apply that same strategy to a portfolio of symbols so that you can gauge, the robustness of the strategy across different markets. What's the point of finding a good strategy if it only works on one particular symbol? Eventually that strategy is going to fail. We have a profitable strategy on Tesla. We switch the symbol to Disney, and then it's a losing strategy. So that I wouldn't consider that to be a robust strategy. So if you are able to apply that strategy to a portfolio of symbols and then get a report based on that portfolio, then you can gauge your strategy and say, well, it seems like, it's profitable overall. So if I'm trading 20 or 30 symbols and I trade them with this strategy, it seems like based on the historical numbers, I'm going to stay afloat on the positive side. But that is only possible if you have a tool that allows you to backtest a strategy against a portfolio of symbols. And that's where Portfolio Maestro comes into play. It's funny. I'm just laughing because I had a colleague who would laugh at the way I pronounce Maestro because it has that, the Spanish pronunciations. It's a Spanish word, so either Maestro or Maestro, however you want to pronounce it, that's the tool that we're going to talk about today. So let's go ahead and close the strategy performance report. I'm going to come over here to my applications, and the application that I'm talking about is right here, Portfolio Maestro. Let's open it up. Everybody should have it as part of the applications that are part of TradeStation. So let me go ahead and maximize this. All right. You're going to find that there are many buttons and tools here. I'm going to walk you through a portfolio backtest, and I'm going to show you how to get it started. I don't have any download files, so we're not using anything custom. This is everything that is built into TradeStation, and you can play around with the functionality and use it yourself, which is what I want to encourage everyone to do. Just after the class, set up different portfolios and test them and see all the different functionality that we have there. By the way, another thing that I wanted to mention, and I'll do this right now. Let me bring this page over here. All right, this is, let me just, hold on. This is, let me just remove this bar at the top. This is our events page. I know that Manolo usually shares the link here in the chat. Manolo, if you can do that right now. But if you go to the Learn section of TradeStation, the events section, you're going to find that on October 10th, we have a follow-up to this class. This class, which is available for you to register, is titled Rank, Filter, and Manage your Positions when Backtesting on Portfolio Maestro. It's a follow-up class because I go into more advanced features of Portfolio Maestro. So today is more like an introductory class. I'm going to show you how to get it started, how to create the strategy groups, how to create the portfolio, and then October 10th, I'll go over the ranking, the filtering, and how to manage your positions when running the back testing on portfolios. So make sure that if you like this class and you're interested, you register for the October 10th class, which is just like part 2 of this presentation. Okay, perfect. All right. So here's Portfolio Maestro. I'm not going to look at anything that is a sample portfolio or a sample strategy group. I'm going to go right into thinking about the idea that we started off with during this presentation, which is the MACD long entry combined with an ATR trailing stop. And I want to see how that strategy works on a portfolio of symbols. So the first thing that you need to do, you have 2 buttons here on the left-hand side. You have one that says Manage Portfolio and Manage Strategy Groups. The first thing you need to do is create the strategy group, and then we're going to create the portfolio, which is pretty much adding everything together, like the symbols and the strategy, all in a portfolio. But let's start with the strategy group. I'm going to come over here to this section for strategy groups. You can see at the bottom that we have sample strategy group 1 and sample strategy group 2. As I said just a moment ago, we're just going to ignore those. And once I click on that button, Manage Strategy Groups, I'm just going to click on New right here on the top left corner. This allows me to create a new strategy group. I'm going to call this strategy group MACD and ATR Trail. All right. This example, I'm going to work it on equities, but notice that you can switch the asset class to futures if you want to do that. I'm just going to click OK. And you can see that at the bottom, it created that strategy group, MACD and ATR Trail. So the next step here is to add the strategy. You can see that that's a button we get right here at the very top. So I'm going to click here, and this is going to load all the strategies that are built in to the TradeStation platform. Not only the ones that are built in, but also any custom strategy that you may have. So if you have ownership of the strategy, if you developed your own personal strategy and wrote it in easy language, I would be very interested in knowing how that strategy works on a portfolio of symbols. So make sure that you bring it over here and test it against a group of symbols. So again, the same way that I did on the platform, I'm going to come here in Portfolio Maestro. I'm going to find the MACD, long entry. I'm going to highlight it, but then I'm just going to scroll up and find the ATR Trail LX. Let me hold down the control key, make sure that I have ATR Trail LX highlighted, and I have, did it highlight the MACD? Okay, it's checked. So it doesn't work as on the TradeStation platform. We don't have check boxes. So the MACD LE is checked, and we just check the ATR Trail, and we just click OK. So you can see that it adds the 2 strategies right here on this top panel, and I'm able to expand the details of each one of these strategies. I can open up the ATR Trail LX, and I can open up the MACD LE. If you wanted to modify these inputs, you would have to do it. Let's see. Can I modify it here? That's one of the things that I wanted to. You go into strategy group. Okay, there we go. So, for this example, I'm going to use the parameters that are here. So the ATR is looking at 10 periods. The ATR factor is 3. So it's using 3 ATRs for the trailing stop amount. For the MACD, we have the usual MACD values at 12, 26, and 9. But if you wanted to adjust any of these parameters, maybe you want to adjust the factor for the ATRs or the number of bars that are used in the ATR calculator, whatever it is, you have to go into strategy group settings. We'll go into some of these settings in just a moment, but you go to the strategy inputs right here, and this allows you to change those inputs for any of the strategies that you select right here on the top. Okay. Again, I'm just going to use default parameters. Merlin's asking, how do you get the TS Portfolio Maestro from TradeStation? You should have it available, Merlin. If you go to let me go back here to my TradeStation, and let me know if anybody doesn't see it either. But if you go to the apps, you have Portfolio Maestro added here. If you don't, I believe there's a way for you to add it directly on the Client Center, on the TradeStation Client Center. But if you don't have it, I mean, you still go here and check, and if you don't have it, call client services and ask them if they can, enable it for you. Okay, so Merlin found it. Eduardo says he doesn't have it. Don't you have to pay extra for Portfolio Maestro? Jeff, depending on the pricing plan that you're on, I think there are some tools that you pay extra for. I'm not sure if anybody that has it here, if you're paying for it, or if it's included in your plan. But those are questions that our client services department can answer and let you know if it's going to cost you something or not. But if you don't find Portfolio Maestro right here in the apps section, client services can add that for you, or you can go to the TradeStation Client Center and find TradeStation additional services. And I believe Portfolio Maestro should be listed there. All right, so let's go ahead and check my settings here. So we already talked about changing inputs, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to just use it the way that it is. Right here, the buttons allow me to add more strategies, remove any of the strategies that I've added, or go into the settings of the strategy. Let's go and take a look at some other settings, because here in general, you can specify commissions if you're paying any commissions on stocks. You can also do some back testing resolution if you want to. This is not a class where we talk about resolution. I have a whole class talking about look inside bar back testing and back testing resolution, which goes into details on why you would want to use it. But for now, we're just going to leave it the way it is. We're not going to turn that feature on. And position limits, this allows you to enter multiple times in the same direction as the currently held position. So in simple words, if the MACD generates an entry, it's going to buy and take you long on that security. But if it meets the criteria again a few days later, it's going to buy again and increase your position size. So that's what position limits allows you to do. It's a pyramiding strategy where your position size continuously increases as the market conditions are in your favor, or at least going in the direction of the strategy. So every time that the strategy generates a signal, it's going to increase your position size. If you don't turn this on, the strategy will only take one trade in one direction at a time. So if it enters long based on the MACD, it will not do anything else until it exits that long position. It will not enter until it exits. So that's what position limits does. But notice that the same strategy settings that you find on the platform when you backtest strategies are found here. I'm not sure how familiar you are with strategy backtesting, but a lot of that functionality that you find when you're testing a strategy on an individual stock are also available here in Portfolio Maestro, which makes the tool very robust, because then you can account for other factors like commissions, slippage, anything that may affect the strategy performance. In the quantity box, of course, you can change the fixed amount. I'm just going to leave it, this is a fixed amount. What I'm going to do is, since the idea here is that I'm going to apply the strategy to a basket of symbols, and every symbol will have a different price, of course. So if I trade 100 shares, the risk on any single position is going to be different when compared to another because of the price of the shares. So if I set my amount per trade on a fixed dollar amount and I say, let me trade $10,000 per position. So if you're trading, for example, a stock like Tesla that is trading at $250, that would only give you how many shares? That would only give you about 40 shares. Is my math correct? So we can do amount per trade. So invest $10,000 per position. I'm going to round down to the nearest, let's go here, 10 shares. And minimum number, 10. So make sure that you adjust those, because if you're trading Tesla, for example, and you're only investing, $10,000, if your minimum, if it's 100 shares, it won't put on that trade, because 100 shares of Tesla is going to cost you, $25,000. and you're saying only invest 10,000. So if you want to trade $10,000 worth of Tesla, make sure that your minimum trade size here reflects that, so that it's able to place that trade. All right, I want to click OK. By the way, on the back testing, we have some other check boxes here that are brought over from the strategy engine on the TradeStation platform. I also do a class on, the back testing settings, not the place here for that explanation. But if you have to configure the strategy, then please take a look at my other strategy trading presentations. And that's it. I'm going to click OK. All right, so that's I have the strategy, I have the trade size already set up. So now I'm going to go here to the symbol list tab, because now I have to select the symbols that I want to apply this strategy on. So I'm going to click on plus, add symbol. Notice that we get access to the TradeStation prepackaged list of symbols and any symbol list that you've created yourself. So if I go here to TradeStation symbol lists, this is where I'm sorry, not the TradeStation symbol lists, the TradeStation custom symbol list. This is where the custom symbol lists that you create would be listed. I have a few here that I've created myself, depending on the presentation that I have, but you can go to the other categories here if you want to scan. If you want to apply the strategy on a particular sector, or if you want to do an index component. Notice that let's do the NASDAQ. Let's not choose something as big as the 100, because that would mean that there's a potential for you to have a position on each one of these 100 symbols. If we specify the trade size to be $10,000 worth, and you multiply 10,000 by 100 symbols, we are talking about how much? We're talking about $1 million that you need in your account in order to maintain a $10,000 position in each one of these symbols. Does that make sense? So always think in terms of what is my account capable of trading. Look at your funds and make sure that you're setting up your back test in a way that you would be able to trade it, So let me not choose the 100. Let me go into the Dow Jones instead and select the Dow Jones Industrial. Let's see how it works in those 30. It says 31 symbols in parentheses because it also includes the symbol for the index itself, $INDU. $INDU cannot be traded. So I'm going to look for a way to remove that symbol from my test. So John is asking, how can you limit the total amount traded to 100K? That's a good question, John. And when you're using strategies on TradeStation, it's interesting because the strategy will assume that you have enough money in your account to trade. Now, when you do a portfolio backtest, there are some settings that you can tweak in order to stop the strategy from trading after a certain number of positions, or after a capital has been invested. So there are some ways that you can limit the portfolio. However, on the initial stages of backtesting, there's no maximum amount that you can trade. The strategy will assume that you can trade everything. So if you say, like, for example, I told the strategy, I want you to trade $10,000 worth of every symbol. And it'll assume that I have enough money in my account to trade $10,000 worth of each symbol. So if I supply 100 symbols, of course, I'll need $1 million in my account. So those are the type of things that you have to think about when you're setting up the strategy, so that it's realistic to what your account is and the funds that you have. Of course, as I said just a moment ago, there are some other constraints and some other settings that you can turn on, which is the topic that I'm going to cover in the class of October 10th. So here I'm going to select the 31 symbols, even though there's one here that cannot be traded. And let's see if I click OK here. It adds the symbol list right here at the very top. I'm able to expand it. It gives me a description of each one of the symbols that are added here to this group. You can see the corporations. I believe that I can, let's see. If I select this one, so this just gives me the properties for the symbol, not what I wanted to do. What I want to do, let's see, remove symbol. Confirm the list. Are you sure you want to remove the selected symbol list? I don't want to remove the symbol list. I just want to remove a symbol. Maybe it's not done here. Interval settings. All right, this is something else. We'll look at the settings and see how we can manage the symbol list. I think I can do it later, but the initial report is going to assume that I'm able to trade the Dow Jones index when I can't. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the settings here. You probably saw that I have interval settings. So this is I'm going to do a daily back test. So all the symbols are going to be loading daily bars, and the strategy is going to look at those daily bars. I'm just going to click OK. And at this point, these are all equities. I'm not going to use additional data series. Money management and ranking are the features that I talked to you about. I'm going to go into detail on those features on the October 10th presentation. But I just created what's called a strategy group, which is a combination of strategies with symbols. Now I'm going to build a portfolio and I'm going to have additional settings that I can tweak. So let's go over here to my manage portfolio button. Notice that we're switching the button here. And in here, I'm going to add, not add, because what you see here, this is a portfolio called sample portfolio 2. So it automatically loads a portfolio from the bottom, and I don't want to modify it. So I'm just going to click over here at the very top where it says new. Again, we did it once when we created the strategy group. Now we're doing it a second time to create what's called the portfolio. And this portfolio is going to be the MACD ATR trail, and I'm just going to say Dow 30. So I know that it's a back test. The portfolio is a back test on the Dow 30. I'm going to click OK. Notice that it blanks out the top panel because at this point, it just creates like a shell of the portfolio. I need to bring in the strategy group that I created just a moment ago. So I'm going to click on this plus button that says Add Strategy Group. And you can see the list of strategy groups. The one that I created was named MACD and ATR Trail. I'm going to click OK. And here we see the two strategies that we have in the strategy group, and we have the symbol here. So we can expand and see all the symbols. We can expand the strategies as well and see the parameters of each one of those strategies. You can remove the strategy group. And at this point, you have two buttons. You have portfolio settings, and over here on the right, you have backtest portfolio. Let's go into portfolio settings to see some of the things we can do. Constraints and portfolio stops are also two of the things that we're going to talk about on October 10th. These are settings that you can apply to a portfolio level and not on an individual strategy. Now, the MACD, LE, and the ATR trail that we selected earlier is going to run on individual symbols. But these other settings, constraints and portfolio stops, are set at the portfolio level, not looking at individual symbols. But here in the general tab, this is all fine. I'm going to click OK. All right. I'm going to go into, I have a delete button here. No. So let's go ahead into the backtest portfolio dialog. I'm just clicking on this backtest portfolio. I see information about what this is going to do. So let me give this report a name. MACD ATR trail on the Dow 30. The initial capital that you see here, you may think that it's what John was asking about. John was asking, how do I limit my strategy or my portfolio so that it doesn't trade more than $100,000? You may think that this is that, but it's not. The initial capital that you see right here, it's only to calculate what is called the return on initial capital. So if my strategy is able to make $10,000 on a $100,000 capital, it's just going to be a 10% return on initial capital. So it's only used in the calculation of return on initial capital. So if you want to make this 100,000 what you really have in your account, you can, so that you can get those return on initial capital calculations to be a little bit more accurate. But remember that if you see return on initial capital on the strategy performance report or any reporting is based on this starting point, $100,000. This is going 2 years back. On the symbols that we looked at on the TradeStation platform, we were going back 5 years. So it's okay for us to go back 5 years. Always be mindful of the number of symbols you have in your portfolio. I only have 30 symbols, or 31 to be exact. I'm going to try to remove that index symbol, but I have 30 symbols, so it's not such a big deal to load 5 years of historical data on each one of these symbols. I'm only loading daily bars. If I were loading 5 years of 1 minute, maybe it's a different story. But not saying that you couldn't, because you can. I mean, we have intraday data here in Portfolio Maestro, and you can do intraday backtesting. But for the example we're working on, this is okay. 5 years of daily data on 30 symbols is not going to be very taxing on the report here. You also have access to other advanced settings that you find on the TradeStation platform. One of my prior strategy trading classes that we did together was on optimization, and we talked about the different methods of optimization and so forth. But that's, of course, a different class, you know. And it's interesting that I always refer to different classes, just that it's impossible to be able to fit everything in just one session. And I'm just referring to these other classes because I want you to be aware that we've done presentations on a lot of these features, and there's a lot of educational content that you can reference if you need some additional help. Okay, so we have the name here. We have 5 years of historical data. Okay, this is all good. I'm going to leave my backtest type to standard. Strategy inputs, I'm not changing anything here. I'm just leaving everything the way it is. And the symbols, oh, this is where I can exclude the $INDU, which is just going to check the box here for exclude. And there is another column here that says create. Create is, I think it's create chart is what it says. Yeah, create chart. What it allows you to do, and this is interesting, and we'll leave it at, we'll do it later, but I think it allows you to see where the entries and exits are on a chart. Because, I mean, Portfolio Maestro doesn't have charting like the TradeStation platform does. And if you wanted to see a chart of the historical backtest, then you have to make sure that these check boxes are checked. Let's go ahead and do it. I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to click on this button that says create all charts. Okay, so everything is checked. I still have that checkbox on excluding the $INDU, and I'm ready. So all I need to do is click on perform backtest. I just click it, and you can see that this initializes and it's downloading historical data, and you're going to see that it doesn't take very long for us to get the results. Okay, the analysis is completed. I'm going to click on the button that says view report now. All right. One thing that I want you guys to notice is that over here on the left-hand side, I was moved from the portfolio section. I was moved to the reporting section. There's a reports tab here. And we have, of course, a performance report. We have an optimization report. Interesting, my camera just died on me. Okay, so we have optimization report if you were running an optimization within Portfolio Maestro, which you can. And then we have some other reports here. But what I want to show you is these numbers. This is an overall performance on the 30 symbols combined. Let's point out a few items here. The total return is 86,506. This is a total return when trading all 30 symbols. you can see that gross profit, it almost reached $300,000. The loss was about $200,000. So the profit factor right here is 1.42. Okay. So for every dollar, we made $1.42, which a little low in my opinion, but it's interesting that we're still on a positive side of the strategy. Notice the number of trades. In a period of 5 years, if you were trading all 30 symbols, you would have traded 1,007 times in that 5-year time span. We have a 43% profitability, making 439 winning trades, 568 losing trades. And remember, this is all numbers on the overall performance of the portfolio. Now, if you wanted to see the individual performance and break down, this total return per symbol, you can go into the trade analysis tab. Trade analysis tab gives you, similar numbers, but here you have the ability to view hide. Right here at the bottom right corner, there's a view hide button. I'm going to click it, and it just gives you a list of all the symbols that make up this report. I can click on this top checkbox next to symbol so that all the checkboxes are highlighted, and then I just click OK. And this, of course, gives me a column for each one of the symbols that are part of the historical backtest. And I believe I'm sure these are sorted in the way that they were traded. That's why you have Johnson & Johnson right here at the very beginning. I don't think it's sorted in any way other than what was the first symbol that was traded. Now let's go here to the trade list to confirm that theory. I'm going to go to the trade list and go over here. This is back in 2018. The first trade was done December 12th of 2018. And you can see the symbol right here is Johnson & Johnson. So the order in which the columns are aligned is the order in which the trades were generated. And even though we go back 5 years, so the chart should have loaded from September, not December. The first trade is in December. I'm not sure if you guys have done enough historical backtest to have an understanding of why it started in December. But maybe you've heard of this term, max bars backsetting. The strategy reserves an amount of data at the beginning of the historical backtest for calculation. And by default, that number is 50 bars. And that's the reason why we don't have earlier trades than December, because that's when the strategy was able to generate trades. But you can see the sequence of trades, and you can see that it started with Johnson & Johnson. And how many shares did it trade? The price was 147 at that time. Right here, the quantity, 60 shares. It was able to trade 60 shares. Remember that in the trade size dialog that we adjusted, we specified that we wanted a $10,000 investment on each one of these stocks, and we wanted to round it down to 10 shares. So you're not going to see trades here that are lower than 10 because we set that as a minimum. And you don't see any odd number of shares. So it's always rounded down to the nearest 10th, 10 shares. So you're not going to see 61 or 62. It's going to round it down to 60. So that's our first trade, 60 shares of Johnson & Johnson. Not a profitable trade. You can see that it lost $381 right here, but you can see the history of all the trades that were generated. Pretty cool, huh? Let's go here, and you have a lot of other tabs that you can analyze in terms of performance. You have returns on equity, equity table. You have all the symbols visible here. Periodical returns, the graphs. This is our equity curve line. That's interesting. And the settings for the strategy. So the same performance metrics that you find in the TradeStation platform when you're developing a strategy and you're looking at the strategy performance report, you're going to find all those same metrics right here in Portfolio Maestro. Another thing that I wanted to show you, remember that checkbox that we checked for us to be able to see a chart? Let me go here to, let me just see where I find that. Okay, here we go. At the very top, you see where it says view trade charts. I'm going to click there. And let me just see. This gives me a window with the strategy that I tested. And here you can select the chart you want to see. So if I want to see a chart of Apple, I just click on this little button for view chart, and it opens up a chart for Apple. Let me go ahead and exit out of this. Oh, it actually closes it. So let me go back in there. View trade charts. Let's go and open this up. I'm going to select Apple. Let's view the chart. Let me move it out of the way. All right. And in here in the chart, I'm able to see the entries and exits of Apple. It's kind of, and it's not like, trade station charting. Let's get that, straight. But here, I'm able to see what the strategy entered and exited. You have the zoom out and the zoom in buttons here if you wanted to get a little bit more detail, And of course, the time scale right here at the bottom. Let me go ahead and exit out of this chart. You want to, no, let's close this. Okay, there we go, and close it. So that's where you get the charting if you wanted to see a chart. I would rather go to the TradeStation platform because I'm more familiar with the functionality there. But this is the report. So hopefully you got the steps. I just wanted to give you the introduction on how to get Portfolio Maestro started. First, you have to create the strategy group with the symbols. Then you have to create the portfolio. You go into the settings of the portfolio and you start the back test. And then it just sends you here into the summary. You can see that some symbols, of course, have a negative return, like Verizon provided or generated a negative return. Same for Triple M. Most of the symbols are positive, which is interesting, Another thing that I wanted to show you is that when you come over here to the trade log, because one of the things that Portfolio Maestro doesn't do is it doesn't allow you to automate this. Yes, it would be great for us to have the ability to turn on a switch and say, okay, do your thing, run the strategy on 30 symbols, trade it based on my limitations, whether the limitations are trade size, constraints, portfolio stops, whatever it is that I want to set, turn it on and let the Portfolio Maestro tool automate my strategy. But it doesn't do that. But what it does do is give you a not the trace log, orders report right here, orders report. So it does tell you what you need to do on a daily basis. For example, here it tells you that you needed to UNH is United Healthcare, right? So you needed to sell the 20 shares at $482. This is the ATR LX was met yesterday. You can see the action date is yesterday. It doesn't use today's data because today hasn't closed yet, and the historical back test here is loading, of course, closed bars. So you can see all the signals that were generated as of yesterday. Well, yesterday was Monday at 4 p.m. And you have all your selling transactions. These are all selling transactions. We don't have any new trades going in. These are open orders. Positions. Oh, okay, you have your open orders. It gives you the specific price that you need to sell at based on the trailing stop. This is what it is. These are your trailing stop values based on the calculated ATR. These are your open positions. You can see that United Healthcare is right there. You entered, this is the opening price. You entered at 445 and you need a selling transaction at 482 or lower. What's the price? We need to find out what the price of United Healthcare is at the moment. Oh, 488. That's where the price is, 488. So you can see that you're setting your trailing stop already for this position you currently have. So based on the strategy, these are the positions that you currently have on your account. And these are the filled orders for today and the canceled orders. It does give you details on what you need to do to the strategy to be in sync with your report, which is pretty cool. Of course, you'd have to run it every single day at the very end of the day so you can get updated orders and updated positions. Remember that the strategy is something that is calculated on the close of every bar. And if we're doing a strategy back test on daily bars, then the strategy gets generated at the close of every single day. And that's the reason why it says 4 p.m. And that's the reason why we're saying you need to run it every single day to get new orders, new reports. It doesn't run automatically is what we're trying to say. But it does give you, which positions you should have open, which orders you should be submitting, and what orders to cancel and which orders to fill. So pretty cool. Let's see. How can you, okay, so from Malton, yes, or Malon, I'm sorry. I need to put my glasses on. Is there a way to see individual total return to check which perform? Yes, exactly. We do that here on the performance report. Trade analysis is what we did here as we displayed every single column. We have this button here at the bottom right, which allows you to hide or enable. I'm just clicking on the checkbox here to add them, and I see the individual return. Jeff said, did you say that you cannot turn on the strategy to run automatically? Yes, I did say that, and I'm just reiterating that you cannot turn this on for automation, although it does give you a lot of details as to what needs to be open, what needs to be an active order, and what needs to be, done to your strategy. Can you run the strategy automatically in the TradeStation platform outside of Portfolio Maestro? Of course you can. In fact, I have 30 symbols in here. So yes, I could theoretically have 30 charts open on the platform, have the same strategy applied to each one of the charts, and have them turned on automatically. The only problem of doing it that way is that every chart will be independent. So it will not be run as a portfolio. Portfolio Maestro has this other layer of constraints and stop level, portfolio level stops, and some ranking and some filtering that is done at the portfolio level. So it does allow you to do some decision making as to what positions to put on. If you go to the TradeStation platform and you open up 30 individual charts and automate 30 individual strategies, then they're all going to be independent, and there's not going to be anything, cross-checking the symbols to see which ones should be traded and which ones shouldn't. So we're going to get to more of that in our next session, October 10th. So make sure that you register for that session if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Portfolio Maestro. But this is my class. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at education@tradestation.com, and we're there for you for any concerns. And I want to wish everyone a wonderful afternoon. I hope to see you in a future class. Goodbye, everyone. Great having you today. Bye-bye.